I moved to Brazil for the first time in 2004 on a university exchange program, and I moved to Curitiba, but I didn't like it very much. It was too much like Dublin, too much like Europe, and I didn't want that. So Recife was completely different, like beach town, different pace of life, and that was what I wanted. I graduated with a degree in history and politics, and I have a master's degree in globalization.
And what made you decide to be an English teacher? Why did you decide to be an English teacher?
Well, like many foreigners that come to Brazil, I'm married to a Brazilian. I suppose it was a mixture of being a bit bored in Ireland, that the economic crisis had hit around that time, and my wife had lost her job, she couldn't get a job, and there was an incentive. I worked for the government to go on a career break, and you would receive part of your salary. So I jumped at the chance. I thought it was a great idea. Could leave my job for a few years and get paid and live in Brazil.
Was it a good idea?
Yeah, it was. Like, I've been home to Ireland a few times, and a lot of my friends suffered a lot, like losing their houses, losing their jobs, and I was working in Brazil and getting paid for it, so I was kind of happy. Yeah, it was a good decision. My sister, she had been living and working in Singapore with her family, and after they had children they decided to move back to Ireland, and they thought it was the worst decision they ever made because they just could not find jobs, and they were highly qualified. She was working as a head of psychology in an institute in Singapore, and her husband was a maritime lawyer there, and when they moved back to Ireland they just could not get work for about a year, so they moved to London. There was a boom in property in Ireland which fueled the economy, so it was kind of a false economy to rely on it, but it inflated prices, and lots of my friends bought properties that nowadays they're in negative equity. They can't pay the banks back and they can't sell, so they're kind of trapped.
It's a huge debt.
Yeah, with a huge mortgage that they'll probably never be able to pay back. So, so I know cases of some people who just left their house, moved to England, and just put the keys through the letterbox in a letter to the bank. There's no point. We'll never be able to pay it. We'd rather go bankrupt and start somewhere else. Everything is so expensive. Inflation is ridiculously high. I know Pernambuco is somewhat cocooned from the rest of the country because of Swapi, and like interest or economic growth always seems to be a little bit higher, I think, in Pernambuco than elsewhere. So maybe that might cushion the blow a little bit. But I don't know. I find that things are getting more expensive, and I'm not making the same amount of money, if you know what I mean. Like, prices are going up, but my salary isn't rising at the same time, and that's nothing to do with ABBA. It's just in general, just prices are going up a lot. Prices of things are just laughable. Like, I buy my clothes in Ireland, or electronic goods, like many Brazilians abroad, because there's no point buying it here. Like my computer broke last year, my MacBook, and to get it fixed here was the same price as buying a new one in Ireland. So I didn't buy it. It's pointless. You just feel you're getting ripped off all the time. Well, I do anyway in Brazil. Maybe it's because I compare, having known a different economic life, and I compare it. I just feel constantly people are stealing from me all the time because of the prices I have to pay for stuff that isn't of very high quality.
But don't you think you have more of this feeling because you've always lived in a different country?
Oh yeah, totally. But even so, even if I didn't, I can't believe that people pay so much for stuff. Yeah, it just seems very expensive in Brazil, and the quality sometimes doesn't match. It's not value for money. I recently had to move out of an apartment I was renting because the landlords wanted to sell, and it just seemed, I think it was about 380,000 for 1,000 reais for a house that was maybe 50 years old. It's falling to pieces. It really needed renovation. It just didn't. Like, if you were to say that to somebody in Ireland how much it was, they would laugh in your face. It was just no way you would ever pay that. So I wouldn't buy a property here at the moment, no.
You are renting a house here?
Yeah. I'm renting a place in Boavista, and I know you shouldn't compare when you live abroad, everything's different as well, but it's more expensive than a brand new apartment to rent in Dublin.
What are your expectations for the future, or here, or maybe in Ireland?
Well, here, I don't know, I think after the World Cup there could be a bit of an economic dip, a recession maybe, as everything seems to be geared up to the World Cup and house prices are rising and credit is so easily given out by banks. It reminds me a lot of Ireland before things went bad. So I bet as regards to the future, well, I hope it doesn't happen, but if it does, I suppose I'll have to deal with it. But as regards to the long-term future, maybe in the next few years, I'd have to think about maybe moving back to Ireland for a while. I don't know.